This is your friendly Cobalt, Cindy Robinson, and you're listening to DDO Players News. Have a great day!
And it's DDO Players, and we are here today with the wonderful Cindy Robinson,
Hi.
who, of course, you might know from Dungeons & Dragons Online as many voices. She does some DM work, some Cobalt work, but she has done a ton of voice acting work in various things, from anime to cartoons to other things. So let's get started. We'll start off with some easy questions for you.
Okay.
How did you get started in voice acting?
Well, I did Broadway for a long time in New York City. 12 years I was up there. And at that time, my sister was in Los Angeles, and she was having some health issues. And I was having a back issue. And I went, what else are you going to do if you can't leap around the stage 8 shows a week? Let's go see if we can make cartoons happen. So I moved out here, and it all kind of started from there. I met a writer at a restaurant, actually, and we were, yakking it up. I'd been here probably, I guess, a little over a year, and I had come out because I thought that maybe I wanted to do jingle singing, which that business, is gone now that licensing has taken over. So the next thing was to think about, anime or whatever. And he said, I just got a job writing this show. I can get you an audition for it. And I ended up booking it. And through the course of the next few years, met one person after another, and they've kept me employed.
So other than your Broadway work, you had never really done any voice work before that? That was your first?
No. But one of the things that I kind of specialized in with the Broadway stuff were characters. I've always been pretty rangy. I'm a singer, and that really, because Broadway is kind of an over the top medium at times, and you're all over the spectrum as far as times, and genres.
Mm-hmm.
Then it actually just was kind of a natural fit to do the character work.
So how do you go about preparing for a voice acting job?
It depends. It depends on the show. It depends on how well do I know the show. There are some for a voice acting job specifically, as in it's 9 a.m. and what do I do to prepare? Or it's, how do I get that job?
Kind of both, actually.
Okay. Well, depending on the character, I mean,
If I'm trying to do somebody very young,
then I need to get up a little earlier because my morning voice is a bit like this. So it takes a little time to get out of that space. I do take voice lessons. Still do that every other week because it's really, really important to maintain. I do a lot of video game work, and I get cast a lot as aggressive females with a lot of screaming and a lot of yelling. And that can damage you pretty quickly if you don't stay on top of it. So if I've got a job at 9 a.m. where I have to sound like I'm 7, then that means getting up at 5:30. And if I've got a job that means I have to sound like a angry ogre cat somewhere, then I don't worry about it so much. Just let's roll out of bed and do it.
So how is voice acting different from, we'll say, quote unquote, normal acting? If there is such a thing as normal acting.
There really isn't. I mean, to me, first of all, I think voice acting is a little more difficult because it's only the voice. You don't have your image and your physicality to rely on. You have to go in and know it and know the character and be able to nuance it. I mean, and we can all say that, we've heard Celebrity A that they hired because Celebrity A is huge, but the voice kind of comes across as very flat.
Right. That's exactly.
And there's much more animation. There's much more nuance, and there's much more flavor to a really good voice actor because you use your mic. You have to know, you have to know how to Doppler. If you want a certain sound, if you're falling, that oftentimes they'll, be like, ah, and you have to know those little techniques because your sound engineer doesn't have time to put all that in for you. So I think it differs quite a bit, and I think that it's actually, if not more difficult, because, I don't have to live on carrot sticks for my life, in my livelihood. I don't have to be 12 pounds in Los Angeles. I can actually enjoy my life that way. But it is, it's a different set of skills completely.
So on average, how much time do you have to prepare for a voice acting job?
There are days that they will call me at 5 o'clock and say, "What are you doing at 9 a.m.?"
Oh,
And
wow.
I have no idea what you're going in to do. I am pegged a lot as a utility player, and utility players come in, and it's because, we're versatile. We have a lot of different characters in our arsenal. I can do anything from the 5-year-old, the little guy like that, to an 80-year-old woman, and everything in between, within my wheelhouse. So they'll be like, we have 3 characters for you, and here they are, go.
That's
So sometimes you
amazing.
have no time whatsoever, and in other times it's like you get a character that you know really well, that you've done over and over again. For instance, with DDO, I've done Cobalt and I've done Dungeon Master. Those don't take any time because I remember them. I know them. So it's just like bringing out an old friend to have tea.
And you kind of touched on this a little earlier, but what's the most rewarding part to you for being a voice actor?
Oh wow. I got a letter, an email from a fan recently. I guess it's been about a year and a half. But I did a game series called Persona, and I play in that a half artificial intelligence, half human, and she's trying to figure out how to have emotions and feelings and play both sides of her fence. And I got this amazing email from this guy that said, "I have Asperger's, and you are the first character that I felt like understood what I go through on a daily basis.
Oh, wow.
I just can't get out." And he said, "When you cried, I cried, and I finally felt like the entertainment industry understood me." And that's when you get something like that. It doesn't get much more rewarding. It's not about being the biggest star. It's about touching one person's life. And I did that, apparently, and I will always be incredibly touched and honored by that.
That is awesome.
Right? And he was so well spoken, and his letter was respectful and lovely and kind, and you never would have guessed, that he had any kind of affliction just by reading what he wrote,
Right.
other than him telling me that. And I think that's the cool thing about characters, is that people reach out and they feel like it's a part of them that maybe they can't express. So my wish is that I can always do that job, and make somebody feel, because that's kind of why we're all here.
And I know you, again, kind of touched on this a little earlier, but do you have like a favorite character that you played over the years?
Oh man, that's like picking a child.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's kind of a loaded, tough question. I know.
It is. I mean, they've each brought me different, a different level of love. There's, the one character that I did some work for Leapfrog. I was the voice of Leap for a while. And I loved that because that creative team was so terrific, and the music in that show was great. And so that one was a favorite for a long time. I really love Sonic Boom. Again, the writing team is brilliant, and it's and that's really rewarding to work with those guys. DDO has always been a fun one because they've never really harnessed me. They said, "What idea do you have for this?" And I've done everything from being a kobold to being a spider lady, and evil. And I love to be evil. That's one of my favorite things.
Who doesn't, right?
Right.
Well, speaking of DDO, let's move into that. How familiar were you with Dungeons and Dragons before you got the voice job for DDO?
Okay. My history with DDO was nil. Nothing. The only thing that I knew was that I come from the Bible Belt. And so Dungeons and Dragons was a big deal out there, as
right there with you.
Evil, and
Yep.
people are going to be satanic, and it's like, what?
Oh yeah.
So that was my familiarity with the game. I don't play. I never have played. I'm actually not a gamer.
Really?
I'm horrible. I'm absolutely horrible at it. And I just think that maybe my my strong suit is to stay on the other side of the TV screen with it. But that was my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, was the Midwest. So when I got the job, which came from a woman named Karen Fishman, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I had done some Lord of the Rings work for her. And she's like, "Hey, I've got this game. Would you read for it?" And I did, and ended up booking it. And And so it's of course it's not satanic and there's nothing evil about it, but you get to be evil. So that was really all I knew going into it.
And yeah, I was going to ask how you got the job for DDO.
Yeah, that's that. To the best of my recollection, that's it. It happened a while ago, and with voice acting, with any acting job, actually, you just throw that audition out there and then you walk away because you don't know if you're ever going to get it, and
Right.
and you can't. I'll audition for sometimes as many as 10 projects a day.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, and sometimes as little as one every 3 days. So it's not always just, a flood of auditions, but when they come through, and when there's something that's right for you, then my agent's really good about getting it to me. And so I don't remember them individually. There are some that might stick out. There's some sessions that stick out. Some that have been, like one time I was trying to be this huge ogre being electrocuted and set on fire, and they had no idea what they wanted that to sound like. So I went and did it over and over and over again and could not talk for 3 days. That was nuts. And so you remember things like that. You remember the extremes. But I believe it was through the Lord of the Rings series that's how I came to be involved with DDO.
Okay. And you're pretty much, I think, most well known in DDO, at least for the Cobalt.
Wow! What are you saying?
Everybody loves the Cobalt.
They're fun. They're just fun.
They are.
Yeah. And, they just aren't too bright. And,
Poor Cobalt.
and they let me have a speech impediment, and which, it doesn't get any better than that. And the really cool thing about DDO and the entire staff behind it is that they've always said, "What's your idea?" And then they're like, "Great, do it." And they don't censor me in that way. They really, I don't know what the other actors' experiences are, but they've never censored me. And when I came up with this, they went ding, 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 ding. That's what we want to hear.
So you came up with the voice for the Cobalt then, or?
Yeah, they just gave me, parameters as I recall, and said, they're little creatures, and they're, they're not too bright. So. And I just kind of thought, well, it was a voice that I'd been messing around with for some other auditions.
Okay.
Hadn't booked with it because it's pretty extreme, but it just seemed to kind of land with DDO.
So I would say then Cobalt is probably your favorite work you've done for DDO, at least.
It certainly is the most fun. I really liked the spider villain too. She was awesome. She was awesome to do. And I like doing the Dungeon Master stuff because they allow me to kind of narrate in a very detached way, but also throw in just a little bit of character voice work with it. And that's, I enjoy doing that. I think that's one of my strong points is the narration stuff. Which
I really, really enjoyed the stuff that you did do the DM parts for.
Oh, thank you.
It was not knocking any of the other DMs, the voice actors that we've had, but I think yours, to me personally, is the best work in the game, I think.
Oh, wow. That's really high praise. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And what stands out for you most about working with Turbine and DDO? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but...
They're just cool.
They are.
They're cool. They're easy. We're all online together because I'm in California. Director is in Austin. The guys are in New York. Turbine's in New York, and we all do it via Skype. And they listen, and so it's we know each other, but not really because we've never really met. So it's kind of this interesting, dynamic to not have faces to put to anything, and
right,
and just know the voices. But they've always been very kind, and I think that a couple of times they've actually written for me. The last session that we did, which was the 10th anniversary release, they came back and said, "I wish we'd written more Cobalt stuff." And they're like, "Next time, that's what we're going to look at." So they're just very complimentary and very easy to be around.
So we'll kind of switch gears here a little bit.
Okay.
Video games versus doing anime and cartoons. Do you like one better than the other, or does it just depend on the project?
It depends on the project. Anime is probably the hardest because you have to dub. at the same time. So you have to make the words fit the lip flaps that are already there. So that one is a different that's a different category altogether to me. Animation versus video games. I like the fact that for me, because I think of myself more as a dramatic actress.
Mm-hmm.
It's a more realistic and grounded kind of thing, and they've really gotten away from character voices so much in video games, and they really want it to be a natural sound. So that's more of a let me sit into this, and there's some terrific writing that goes on for video game work. I mean,
I agree.
There is some deep stuff that's happening. Last of Us. What else I can think of right off the bat? The Skyrim things. I mean, there were some things that were explored. Fallout, New Vegas. But animation is just always going to be fun. I mean, it's the glory job. It's the one people hear about. It's not a subsect of anything. It's much more mainstream. So it's just different. It depends on what you excel at. And like there's when I do work on Sonic Boom, they wrote for me. The writers were in the room for all of us actually, and they watched us and they wrote for us specifically. That's not really the case with video game work. The script is set, it's in stone, and you have to fit that mold. So it's just a different perspective of how you look at it. But it's not one better than the other. It's just, I don't have to be bored and do the same thing every single day.
You got the coolest job ever.
I do, don't I?
You do. I'm just sitting here like so jealous. I'm like, your job is just awesome because you get to be something different every day.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Which, I am, with my family, each of my parents were married 3 times each. So I am either the youngest, oldest, middle, or only child, depending on what part of the family I'm with, which really explains the schizophrenia. And I get to take that to work and capitalize on it. So I'm all good with that.
So do you have any projects upcoming that you can talk about? I know
No.
some stuff you probably can't, unfortunately.
No, there's nothing that I can share, although there is some good stuff coming up. I do work on, I guess I can talk about Gotham. I work on Gotham, which is always a good time. And I do what's called looping on that show. So we'll go in and we'll put all the crazy voices in to all of those wild and wacky scenes that take place in an asylum and stuff like that. That's always fun. That's I've been doing that for about 1.5 years.
All right. Well, I thank you very much for taking just a little time out of your day. I know you were probably very busy.
Absolutely. This is such a pleasure. And I'm always ready to talk. I would like to thank all the players, for their dedication to the game and hope that I do it justice on their behalf. That's what it's all about, is we don't have a job if there aren't players. And I love talking to the players. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much, Cindy.
Thank you. Have a great day.